This is Mac OS Ken.
Positive iPhone sentiment, weirdness around the Wistron Riot, and the EU has big proposals around big tech. It's Wednesday, the 16th of December, 2020. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Headspace. Meditation made simple. Get a free 1-month trial at headspace.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Your Mac, as good as new. Clean My Mac X is all-in-one cleaning and optimizing software for your Mac. Clean My Mac X declutters your Mac and runs maintenance scripts to keep your Mac's performance at its peak. Of course, even the smartest utility may not know trash from treasure. Clean My Mac X gives you more control over apps and their files. You can find out what apps and programs you have on your Mac and uninstall those that you don't need. It's up to you. Who knows what's hidden on your Mac? Regular maintenance can be key to a clean machine. You can take care of that with the push of a virtual button and Clean My Mac X. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSKen. That's MACPAW, macpaw.app/macOSKen. That's macpaw.app/macOSKen for Clean My Mac X. And a big thanks to MacPaw for sponsoring today's show. Apple shares were up a little over $6 on Tuesday. If you want to know why, look to the land of the rising sun. The Globe and Mail out of Canada, which is not the land of the rising sun, highlights a report from the Japanese business site Nikkei that says Apple is upping iPhone production in a serious way headed into 2021. According to the Globe and Mail's take, the Cupertino company plans to manufacture up to 96 million iPhones in the first half of 2021, a nearly 30% year-on-year increase, owing to strong demand for its 5G handsets. That said, while I won't say the report is full of holes, I will say there are a couple of holes for which to watch out. First, it's not just the 5G phones Apple's ordering, but less expensive models like iPhone 11 and iPhone SE as well. Also, manufacturers may miss Apple's mark thanks to an industry-wide shortage of key components. And then there's the big one: the target will be regularly reviewed and revised in response to consumer demand. But the sentiment is there, and investors grooved on it on Tuesday. Apple shares ended the day at $127.88, up $6.10. The Nikkei report had Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives humming a familiar tune. Apple Insider had the head of Apple's Pep Squad, financial division, saying the Nikkei report simply supports what he's been saying all along: the iPhone is in or on a super cycle. Ives has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His 12-month price target on the shares is $160, with a bull case that could see the shares at $200. More news around the Wistron worker riot in India. You likely remember the story so far. The first had workers breaking glass and burning signs over promises of pay that was not delivered. The second had Apple suspending production at the plant and putting a team on the ground to investigate. Now it's starting to get strange. iMore cites a report from DigiTimes that has Wistron downplaying the damage incurred during the riot. Quoting, and I hate to do it, but quoting DigiTimes, Wistron, in response to reports claiming the riot at its Indian plant had resulted in damage totaling New Taiwan $1.6 billion, that's $56.31 million US. They've maintained that the loss was actually only around 100 to 200 million New Taiwan dollars. That's said by iMore to be closer to $7 million US. rather than the 56 million and change originally reported. Now, weirder than the monetary discrepancy is the response to the riots from other manufacturers in India. A separate piece from iMore had the India Cellular and Electronics Association, or ICEA, writing to Wistron on Tuesday, taking Wistron's side. Quoting the letter, as a leading industry association representing electronics manufacturers that has worked tirelessly on advancing India's objectives to become a global hub for electronics manufacturing, we express deep concern and unflinching solidarity with Wistron management and its employees. Wistron is a very valued member of ICEA. We want to assure you that what has occurred at the Wistron factory is neither a reflection of India as a country nor our culture. We believe the world is one family, and in the concept of the guest is equivalent to God. The association sort of addresses the concerns of the workers. While it does acknowledge HR issues and scope for improvement in a new factory like Wistron's, none of it justifies acts of vandalism and stealing. According to iMore, the letter further notes that there are several peaceful means by which employees can register complaints. The organization wraps the letter saying, "We look forward to working with you closely to identify the issues at hand, ensuring justice for those who perpetrated these unacceptable acts, and opening a fresh chapter which is both forward-looking and prosperous for Wistron and India as a host country." The EU has big plans for big tech, and big tech probably won't like them. The website for the BBC outlines the two pieces of proposed legislation, the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act. According to the piece, the focus of the Digital Services Act is to create a single set of rules for the EU to keep users safe online, protect their freedom of expression, and help both them and local authorities hold tech companies to account. If I'm reading it right, this one deals largely with social media and publishing platforms. Think Facebook and YouTube. Worth knowing about, though not likely to affect Apple in a really direct way. The one that could get Apple is the Digital Markets Act. Quoting the Beeb again, the Digital Markets Act centers on the regulation of gatekeepers, those behind entrenched services that other businesses use to provide their own products. This covers the operators of search engines, social networks, chat apps, cloud computing services, and operating systems, among others. They are likely to include Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. The idea, says the Beeb, is to prevent the firms gaining unfair advantages via their elevated positions. Under the proposed legislation, companies would be required to tell competition regulators of any acquisition plans, not give their own services place of prominence when displaying them and competing services. They're required to not use data gathered via their main service to launch a product that will compete with other established businesses. And they have to let users pull pre-installed apps and use other software in its place. Failure to comply would not be pretty. For the Digital Markets Act, the European Commission could issue fines of up to 6% of a company's annual take in Europe. And the BBC says recurrent infringers are warned that they could be made to divest certain businesses where no other equally effective alternative measure is available to ensure compliance. That is a threat to break up big tech companies if they can't follow the rules, which is interesting. At the end of October, Margherita Vestager, competition commissioner for the European Union, warned against the structural breakup of big tech companies. Back then, she was, and one assumes still is, concerned that breaking companies into pieces could lead to lots of unintended consequences, starting with the amount of time governments would have to spend in court trying to do it. That said, even if it is a last resort, it is an option the EC wants to keep in its arsenal. Now, you'd figure Facebook would be annoyed by the proposed EU regulations. Still, the social network saw a chance to slap Apple in the news, and it took that chance. Apple Insider cited a statement from Facebook to Reuters. Quoting the report, Facebook said it hopes the Digital Markets Act, which could restrict companies highlighting their own products on an app marketplace, will also set boundaries for Apple. Apple controls an entire ecosystem from device to App Store and apps, and uses this power to harm developers and consumers, as well as large platforms like Facebook, the company said. Irony deficient. When will all of this go into effect? Well, assuming it does, it could be a while. While Competition Commissioner Vestea tells CNBC she would like to see the laws on the books soon, she says the whole process could take a couple of years. More news in a moment, but first a word from Headspace. Meditation made simple. I know I haven't been using it long, but I feel like Headspace is working for me. What makes me think so? My resistance to it. Sometimes when I get mad, I want to stay mad. When I get sad, I want to stay sad. When I feel overwhelmed, well, I just don't see a way out. That actually happened last night. I couldn't concentrate on what I had to do because I felt overwhelmed by how much I had to do. Somewhere in there, I thought, I should meditate. First, I fought that. Then I questioned why I was fighting it. Then I hit a short guided meditation on Headspace for feeling overwhelmed. And yes, I felt better. Still had a lot of stuff to do, but those few moments of mindfulness really made a difference. Headspace is backed by 25 published studies on its benefits, 600,000 five-star reviews, and over 60 million downloads. It might feel silly at first, but Headspace is doing something for me. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/macOSKen. That's headspace.com/macOSKen for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. This is the best deal offered right now. Head to headspace.com/macOSKen today. And thanks to Headspace for sponsoring today's show. Monday saw a lot of updates from Apple. So many that I didn't have time to tell you about all of them on Tuesday. Let's say we hit some of what I missed. The Big Sur update makes apps on Macs bigger. Mac Rumors says the macOS 11.1 update enables full screen mode for iPhone and iPad apps running on M1 Macs. The piece says this addition is particularly useful for video apps like HBO Max. The update also allows iPhone and iPad app windows to be switched between landscape and portrait orientations, according to the report. You should be told or warned that Apple has changed the way Final Cut Pro, iMovie, Compressor, and Clips share finished projects to various platforms. The way a piece from iDownload blog describes it, Apple updated a variety of its first-party content creation tools to support a more streamlined sharing option. Now, I don't use any of those apps on a regular basis, but I do know somebody who does, and they are not happy with the changes. Far from streamlining, it's actually added work and time to something they used to be able to set and forget. There is a support document that tells you about the changes. If you use any of those apps regularly and haven't updated yet, you might want to look that doc over to see what you're heading into. Apple's music recognition app Shazam got some love on Monday. According to a piece from Mac Rumors, Shazam 14.2 brings a refreshed look to the music discovery app with a simpler swipe-up card to access your past Shazams and an improved design. Shazam will now actively search for a user's missed or offline Shazams and notify them when they're found, which is pretty cool. The app is also tying in music charts, so you can discover music you're not hearing rather than the way Shazam usually works. There are also improvements for syncing Shazams with Apple Music and Spotify. The cool as all of that is, the biggest change may not be in the app at all. Apple has for the first time made Shazam available as a web app, available in beta at Shazam.com. Currently available for Safari, Chrome, and Firefox on macOS and Chrome OS. The piece says the web app lets users check charts and identify music directly from a browser. A day after the slew of updates, an update for the HomePod line. Another piece from Mac Rumors says Apple has updated the software for HomePod and HomePod Mini to version 14.3. Just stabs and perfs for this one, which is to say the update includes general performance and stability improvements. It's free, it'll happen automatically if you let it, or you can sort of force it by hitting the device's tile in the Home app on an associated device. And finally today, here's something fun to do with any of your Siri-enabled devices. Ask it what a humpback whale sounds like, or a cat, or a harp. Apple Insider says Apple on Monday introduced a new feature to Siri that enables the virtual assistant to play back short audio clips when queried about specific sounds. I don't know that there's a list, but the ones I mentioned do work, along with the toy poodle, fire trucks, and trains. Apple Insider says independent testing shows other animals like lions, tigers, spotted hyena, and more. Vehicles, including regional ambulance and police car samples, while instrument audio is limited to a range of common woodwinds, brass percussion, and strings. In case you're wondering, you can still ask, "What does the fox say?" You probably already tried that one, though, and you know the answer. Coming up in a few minutes, podcasters talking podcasting today. The Great Hunker Down spawned a boatload of podcasts in the first half of this year. How are they doing? Plus, a look at big podcast producers versus indies. Or with indies, there's no reason we can't all get along. Today in iOS, host Rob Walsh is back in a few minutes. Look for that show and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken Live goes live again this afternoon, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. Find it at youtube.com/KenRay or subscribe to the audio show macOS Ken Live wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by Headspace, meditation made simple. Get a free 1-month trial at headspace.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.